Welcome to Vanishing Gates. I am Jay, and these are...
The very sore Jack.
And the very sober Kitty Cat.
Very good, for once, she says. Anyway, so when we left off the last show, we talked about Phil Schneider. Not to be confused with Rob Schneider, who is the toaster. I had to do it. Anyway, Phil Schneider in the
Rob
underground...
Schneider is.
Phil Schneider and the underground battle taking place in New Mexico, and apparently all under the world, not all over the world, like I said in my notes. Under the earth. Subterranean stuff. Green Berets fought an alien enemy in the 7-story dumb or deep underground military base. It wasn't dumb, that's just an acronym. The story's kind of dumb. In Dulce, New Mexico, and Phil had been caught up in the action, narrowly escaping death and losing 2 of his fingers in the action before dispatching 2 aliens,
A homeless
starting
person.
off a war, the War of the Worlds. You're welcome, H.G. Wells.
Is that where they got the idea for War of the Worlds?
No, that was in like the early 1900s.
Holy crap! I
was
get
being
this.
sarcastic.
I cannot get
Oh.
this cigar to burn properly.
Sounds like a personal problem.
It is.
Have you
like
talked to
really bad.
your urologist? Anyway,
That is nuts. My
also a
urologist
urologist
is
question. Phil then went on to experience multiple attempts on his life with weapons, attacks, and even someone trying to push him into oncoming traffic. Some people said there was a highway. Some people said it was traffic. I couldn't actually find the record of it. But eventually, he was found dead in his own home in Wilsonville, Oregon. His own catheter tube was wound up and tied up around his neck. Which, yeah, on its own is weird.
I'm gonna say that's a strange way to go.
That's weird enough, as his wife said that he couldn't have possibly done that because he was missing fingers, which we know. And it's important also to note that Phil was sick with cancer, very badly.
So his way to, and you know that is weird.
Not the cancer part. A lot of people get that.
No. But I mean, yeah.
The catheter thing.
The catheter thing is super weird. And here's the thing: people say, well, maybe he did it, and it's like, but he's a guy who would have had access to firearms. If you're going to go out and try to take yourself out quickly,
Yeah.
there's a quicker way to do it.
Well, it leaves a mess. Some people are mindful of that. Anyway, I'm not trying to give anybody
I'm pretty
ideas.
sure if he had cancer and he choked himself to death, he would have probably crapped himself as well. So the mess is probably just as bad.
You don't think about that part. So, there are reports that Phil was actually killed in a shootout with the police when they came to arrest him for evading taxes and fines, or fines, whichever. Supposedly, Phil was acting aggressively and he went for a gun, which went about as well as one would assume it would go. You pull a gun on a cop, and you're usually going to get aerated pretty quickly.
Would you give me that circular cutter, please? I apologize.
Anyway.
This cigar is being a bitch.
So it's interesting that that would be a report that was made that's not actually the cause of death. The cause of death is forever sleep by hanging. Strangulation, anyway. There's also rumors that there were signs of torture on his body. I've yet to be able to find a lick of evidence to suggest that was true, but that is some of the rumors. But yeah, again, self-death is the listed cause of death. Yeah. The S word is very
Yeah, I know.
frowned upon on the
Self-deprecation.
Self-deprecation. Oh,
You could
God.
also call it sewer slide.
Sewer slide, yes. Anyway, now according to Cynthia Dreyer, Phil's ex-wife, Cynthia Dreyer, he had been very clear numerous times that if he's found dead and they say it was self-inflicted, you will know that he was murdered. He had said this during speeches that he had given at conferences. He had said it to numerous people. He said it to her.
You know what's funny? There's actually a lot of people in this world who said that and wound up dead shortly after.
Most of them worked for Boeing. Anyway.
So weird how suicidal Boeing employees are.
Yeah.
Don't say the word.
She clarifies.
Sorry.
She clarifies that the catheter tube was wrapped and tied multiple times around his neck, so tied up in knots and wrapped, and then tied up in more knots and wrapped. And hypothetically, he just sat there on the edge of his bed and did this, which is silly, especially considering he was found next to his piano. And I don't personally know anyone that keeps a piano bedside.
Oh, you don't?
So
I have a whole baby grand just right there.
Right there?
In case I need to get up and
I'm
just
sure there's some.
hit the Beethoven really quickly.
I'm sure there are, but it's highly
in the bedroom.
it's highly unlikely. That's all I'm saying. Cynthia was convinced that he's murdered. Period. She won't argue with it. That's what she says. She will fight you on it, not literally, I'm sure, but
Oh my
she'll
God.
argue with you on it. She will Karen up on you if you try to suggest otherwise.
I'm going to say right now, we are not allowed to say anything positive about something, right? Don't worry. I have nothing positive to say.
About these particular
I
ones?
am just, can I show the sign? The tag?
Yeah, as long as it's not all about it, I don't care.
This is I'm going to take 2 seconds because you guys know we like our cigars. If you see this label, don't pick it up.
It does say reject on the label, though, to be fair.
It is a reject. It is a huge reject. It is bad.
All right, back to it. Not for Rabbit Trails. There's a lot to uncover here. When she went to the mortuary to see his body, she expected to see gunshot wounds, etc. The mortician said he knew the coroner and would go see that body so that she wouldn't have to. Because at this point, she knew he was dead. She didn't know why. Which makes no sense. She's next of kin. The police in Portland, which is where she was having the body moved to, as where she lived, said that the funeral director was the one that found the catheter tied around his neck. So the cops called her and said, hey, your funeral director, your mortician you sent down here, found his catheter tied around his neck. So he was not shot like originally thought, but that he had been asphyxiated. Apparently, the coroner didn't even see the body. She went on to say that's not how it works in Oregon, that when you die at home, the coroner or his assistant must examine the body. Now, personally, I don't know about that for having worked in California as a mortician, but that isn't the case here. If you're sick or old or whatever, sure, we go in and we do the removal. I don't do that anymore. But if the situation's questionable or is self-inflicted in any way, looks that way, 100% the coroners go to the scene before the removal can take place. They clear it, the investigation has to start, and they look at it. My cousin and I actually got into a bit of a jam because we went to go pick up someone we thought was a hospice pickup, and we assumed it was a homicide when we walked in. And sure enough, we couldn't get a hold of anybody, so we took it. And the coroner called us and said, hey, you guys need to come back here. Big no-no. Come have a conversation with us.
They didn't like that you took the body?
No.
Uh-oh.
And we shouldn't have.
You're not
We had
supposed
no
to touch the
way.
scene.
We had no way to call the police.
Before the cops got there.
Because there was no way to call anybody.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, because we were way up in the hills.
There's evidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She says, anyway, sorry.
So,
What?
wait a minute. So you guys show up, you're like, we're pretty sure there's a homicide.
Well, what happened was we actually talked about it on one of our shows
Oh, that's right, we did.
called Mortuary Stories. If you guys want to go back, it's on the YouTube. Me and my cousin Billy, we worked as
cool.
morticians together. And we went on what's called a removal. That's when someone passes away. People that work for the mortuary come and remove the deceased
This tastes like
from the
fucking
house.
oil. I'm sorry, I can't finish this thing.
I don't care. I'll finish it later. Don't smush it too much. It's fine. But anyway, so we get there and the door was looked like it was kicked in, and the way he was on the ground looked questionable, and the 2 relatives that were there were very questionable, and we had no way to contact anyone. So we decided to remove him because one of us isn't going to stay there with 2 other people that may have just committed homicide, and we're not just going to leave the body there because we didn't know what else to do. So we took him, and then we had to go back and have a conversation with the coroner at the time. So another question that comes up is that Phil had a nurse giving him shots in his home for MS, that he'd been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and the nurse would apparently come in and give experimental doses of this medication, but one of the side effects is that he would get very ill, like he wouldn't be able to go visit his daughter and stuff. At this point, him and his wife, Cynthia, had been separated, and they were not together anymore, but they were still in contact. When Cynthia went to the university, they told her that Phil wasn't on any list for any experimental drug treatment, and there was no programs for this kind of thing at all that would have gone to Phil, to treat Phil. So that's really questionable. This woman administering the shots, now Cynthia's like, who was this and why was she actually doing this? What was really going on? Cynthia believes that the same woman was involved in his death, and that she also believes that she saw her in a car outside of the church during the funeral for Phil. She had been watching the whole thing unfold. So she believes that woman had something directly to do with the death of Phil Schneider.
Phil Schneider is dead by catheter.
Too soon.
Well, I mean, it would make
96,
sense.
man. It's not long enough.
Well, think about it for a second. It would make sense because they also didn't mention that there was a break-in. They didn't mention there was like any kind of struggle, which would mean that it was someone that he trusted or someone that he would allow to get near him.
Yeah, there was no sign of forced entry.
And if that was the person administering
it
stuff,
seems like the entire thing leading up to it makes no sense because the body's at the coroner's office. The coroner had nothing to do with it. How'd the body get there? And why are they talking about maybe a police-involved shooting? Because that's what it sounds like she was expecting when she got there. So, real questions that I didn't know about until today when I heard her interview. One of her interviews. So, Cynthia goes on, though, and tells a story that Phil, before the Dulce base incident, had been involved in another base construction. And when blowing up granite, they came across a chamber that should not have been there, like a hollowed out area in the granite. This chamber was in Colorado, and when they went into the cavity, there was actually a UFO and an alien body that had been there for so long that the quartz had formed over both the craft and the body, which takes maybe millions of years to do. So he believed, and she believed, that they had been there on Earth for a very, very, very long time. So, I mean, he said a lot of things while he was alive. And she believes, apparently, every single one of the things he said. So, I didn't live with the guy, she did. Cynthia's also said that aside from just the gray aliens, there were also lizard and aliens down there in Dulce when Phil got injured during that gunfight with aliens in the war, or the battle. And whatever aliens were there were allergic to ammonia, so the workers would pee in their helmets and throw it on them, as one does.
Okay.
I know, this is what she says. This is what she says. She correlates that the blood-drinking aliens are kind of like where we get vampires from. The reason she thinks that is, when they got down there was a huge vat of blood and body parts that the aliens were apparently using for whatever purpose, eating and drinking. And so she thought, well, vampires, we probably got that idea for vampires. The reason we think garlic works on vampires is because garlic emits ammonia. And she's not incorrect. Technically.
Yeah.
It's a very silly thing to have as a weakness, but I wouldn't think R. Kelly would be our best hope for survival against aliens, as long as the aliens are 14.
Oh,
get it?
That whole movie. Now it explains.
Girl, I'm gonna pee on you.
That was an alien. That whole thing was about him.
R. Kelly thought she was an alien.
He's an alien killer.
R. Kelly, alien killer.
He's
Someone
aliens.
in the future is going to make one of those Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter shows. It's going to be that one, R. Kelly, like alien killer.
Is he back in prison again?
I don't care.
Pretty sure he's in prison.
So she confirms though that Phil's torso would actually open up from where he was wounded. Would actually open up when the weather was too warm, and it got too humid. His chest, like the wound, would open up a little bit. Yeah, and that during their marriage. And it actually ruined one of his lungs. Like, one of his lungs only half functioned from that blast that he took to the chest. Remember when it opened up like a fish?
Wait.
Because of whatever damage happened, it would still open up. It never properly healed.
Wasn't it, like, sewed together? Like, did he get stitches?
They didn't get it done right. He actually ended up getting it repaired while they were married. So she corroborates he had some very strange wound they couldn't explain that would actually randomly open up during certain times when the weather was wrong, and that he actually had to get it repaired and did get it repaired while they were together. So she does corroborate that part of the story, but she also thinks that vampires were sourced from aliens. So, she, and guess what? They like to eat our adrenaline as well, she says. Which, if you know anything about child abduction, well, here we go. Pizzagate all over, buddy.
Oh, God.
Adrenochrome. Yeah, she's one of those. She goes on to talk a lot about like the militia and things like that, and Waco and all sorts of stuff.
Can I just say something real quick? Really quickly. Have you ever seen, I can't remember what that vampire movie is, but they literally took over the Earth, and the humans that were left were inside of giant body bags inside of a warehouse, and they bled them.
I can't remember what it's called.
If the government ever needed to get adrenochrome or blood from you, that facility would truly exist, because they don't need to tell you about it. They could dig a giant hole in a facility you would never find, in a place you would never see, and do that.
So you're arguing for this?
No, I'm saying that...
I'm just saying, like, it's literally what she's saying.
I'm saying that if this kind of shit was real, because people talk about like how the rich abduct these people, and this is what they're doing. you would never know about it. They wouldn't need to abduct people. They would grow them. They would have them basically have families in underground bunkers producing children nonstop.
Well, no, because they need to have that fear response to pump the adrenaline. Remember?
You wouldn't be scared?
Not if you were raised in a tube and
You
had
mean
no
adrenochrome?
idea of what anything was. Yeah.
You ever think that maybe Project, the one we don't talk about, might have been a breeding program for something like that? Eh?
She did. So she claims that the children mostly vanish near these alien underground
Just
bases.
like the gates.
Right? No, the gates are fine. Probably aliens. They do apparently vanish mostly near these underground bases, and that our governments house this willingly and hide it and turn a blind eye to it because they give us tech stuff. We trade you some babies, Wayfair. You give us some technology, DVD players. Yeah.
So did they just go to their local pizza store and pick up the people? Like, is that?
Apparently.
No.
Yep. Yep.
That's why. But that's
Ever since the Wayfair thing, they can't just order it.
But that's what
cabinet.
my point was, that like people talk about Pizzagate, like kidnapping going into a pizza. You don't need to do that. They could literally just have people living underground, like the Morlocks, basically, and have them
I never
reproducing.
understood the whole Pizzagate thing. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's another show for another time. We'll explain it
yeah,
later.
well,
That's a whole. It's
I
a
don't
whole
even know
different
what
rabbit trail.
It's
what
a
it is.
whole.
Yeah, we'll explain
I
it.
just remember hearing about it.
It's cray cray.
Alright,
So
there's Notch.
she also says that high-speed rails that run underground, they basically have cattle cars with human food objects and servants being freighted back and forth to the alien bases. As one does. It seems pretty clear, all the crazy claims aside, though, that Phil Schneider, much like Jeffrey Epstein, didn't kill himself.
Oh, there's a soft.
I really do believe that. I don't think he killed himself because it doesn't make a lot of sense. Why? I don't know. I don't know if I'm buying into everything she says. She got really far into the water with the militia thing, claiming the Oklahoma City bombing and Waco were a cover-up for these things, and that's not what that was.
The term "a broken clock" is right twice.
Twice a day, yeah.
Let me put it like this.
Pretty much how I feel.
There's
about
probably a reason a lot of these guys who work for the government turn up dead all of a sudden. And that's because, how do I put this? You can talk all the crazy alien shit you like, but look at someone like Alex Jones.
You only have to say one thing that's right to be a target.
But that's what I'm saying. Is look at Alex Jones, for instance.
I hate to do that. He's unattractive.
All they do is they spew bullshit. But the thing is eventually they hit something. And
But-
once you hit the hammer on the goddamn head,
To be fair, Alex Jones hit some things pretty accurate.
He did, he did.
Really out
he
there.
did. Now here's the problem. Once you hit
Turn
the
of the
hammer,
Frog's gay.
once you hit the hammer on the head of that nail perfectly, that's when they have to step in and be like, now you're starting to talk about shit you're not supposed to be talking about
Exactly.
for real.
Yeah.
And that's probably what happened. Was he was actually more than likely going to talk about something that was real.
Well, and that's
Some
the
real
thing.
thing
I don't
that they
doubt-
couldn't allow him to talk
Look,
about.
I don't doubt that he was working on subtrading basis, considering his background and what company he worked for. I don't doubt that at all.
Well, let me put it like that. Yeah.
No, I don't doubt that he was murdered for something he knew or
Absolutely.
saw that he shouldn't have.
But here's the thing about that though. There was probably, because it just sounded like a bunch of blathering crazy shit, so they were cool with it because he could make money off it. But more than likely, he actually knew something because these people do work on this stuff. It is secret. And he probably had real fucking secrets. And getting that age, being close to death, maybe he was going to write a memoir. Maybe they caught wind of something real happening and they were like, you know what? You cannot give up actual details about secret bases. You cannot just leak where it is.
Don't worry, the plot thickens.
But what I'm saying is, like, maybe he was going to give an actual geolocation of a real secret base, and they were like, bro, you aren't going to be doing that shit.
Yeah, maybe he had like actual military installations he was going to.
Yeah, maybe he was actually going to add
that would
like,
absolutely
a real
get
secret
you
location.
That would get you Epstein for
But
sure.
that's what I'm saying. It's like people would say now I'm a conspiracy theorist. No. That's not a conspiracy theory because you are signing NDAs. You are signing military contracts for a reason. You were never supposed to talk when you're building these things. They do entrust private, military, and several things to build these things.
I will
And
put
it
though,
does need to stay
it's,
secret.
It's important to note the United States government does not allow to condone any assassinations
No,
of governments of
they do
American
not.
civilians at all ever. They don't do that ever.
But the thing is when you sign these contracts and you do that, you're putting yourself at risk because you are now I imagine when you sign these contracts, they don't tell you where you're going or what
you
you're
don't
doing.
have to sign a contract. You can just find some information you weren't supposed to see.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
That's what you got to realize is when you're doing stuff like this and you read between.
All right.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
anyway, it goes because it does get deeper. After Phil's death, Cynthia went to see his personal belongings and all of his research, photos of UFOs, etc. They were gone, missing. But everything else was left there. Everything of value, everything monetary, all his money, his wallet, his jewelry, anything he had, watches, stuff like that. Anything of value that you would think if someone was going to burglarize you, they would take. They only took his research stuff, all of it, every bit of it gone. So that I mean, like I said, there's some things here that are he definitely was onto something for sure. I just don't know what. So in 1986, when Phil first moved in with Cynthia after they got married, Cynthia had this neighbor that had lived across the street for like a couple decades or whatever, because she had lived there a long time and knew this neighbor really well. Right about the time Phil moved in, that neighbor just suddenly moved without a word, just gone. And somebody else moved in, another gal who was not talkative. Cynthia said she tried to talk to her a couple times, couldn't get anything out of her aside from the old lady had to move to a nursing home because of a family emergency. I don't know how much information you get when you buy a house about the person you're buying from. Mine didn't come with a docket of a history of the people I bought my house from. I'm just saying.
It usually doesn't.
Unless there was a death in the house, they have to disclose that
that's
within a certain amount of time. But this lady didn't die. The idea that there was like a fire in the family, and then she went to go take care of it, and something happened. She's in a nursing home now. During Phil's funeral, or right around the time of Phil's funeral, that lady moved out. The new lady's gone, just suddenly gone. Moved out. House is vacant. Very questionable. So yeah, I do think that they had him under surveillance for sure, and I do think someone had something to do with it. His death. I don't think he did. He did it to himself. There's too many things that don't make sense there. But then again, Cynthia also claimed to have known a person that was basically a lawnmower man. The Stephen King book and movie.
Yeah.
Lawnmower Man.
Oh my God.
That he could do things through the television and make things happen.
Never heard of that.
Which is
Lawnmower
crazy.
Man.
It's a sci-fi movie, and the thing
Oh.
Stephen King wrote. Basically, the guy
So secret,
gets
right?
super smart and is able to interact with the computers in a way, like physically, that he shouldn't be able to. It's more than that, but still, that's the TLDR.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do what you want with that information from her. But Phil was involved with Ron Rummel, the friend from the last episode we talked about, whose death was inspired him to whistleblow in the first place, or at least was the last straw on the camel's back after everybody else had died that he knew. Ron was the guy, with the gunshot to the dome they found, and the gun wasn't, like they didn't have any gunpowder on it. There was no blood anywhere, and it was his suicide note was written in the wrong hand. Like he's not left-handed, and the note was written by a left-handed person. Upon investigation, and he smelled like sodium pentothal, the truth serum. That guy. Okay.
Oh yeah, now I remember.
So-
yeah.
This gets even.
Very
Well, I know all
It
about
gets-
what sodium pentothal smells like.
Believe it or not, it gets weirder
Somehow.
from here.
I'm just confused. How do people know what sodium pentothal smells like? It's not exactly like readily available, is it?
If you're a chemist, you can get it, or a doctor. I'm sure
What
you
does
can
it
get it.
smell like?
I have no idea. I've never used it.
Yeah, we've never been
Like
around.
sodium pentothal.
So like sodium
Hey,
pentothal.
Katie, does this rag smell like chloroform?
No.
That's how Katie got kidnapped. You ain't getting me at Disney World, bro.
You wouldn't know what it smelled like because your past knocks you out.
Well, they inject it into
Got
you.
it.
Oh.
Chloroform smells a specific way, I'm sure.
Oh.
But Rummel, also said that people were being used as a food source, and frankly, finding info on him online is near impossible. Aside from like shows and podcasts talking about him, there's almost no information about him at all.
So you can't find anything about this Rummel guy.
Oh, I'm getting there. Well, it's almost impossible. And if we look at the publisher of the Alien Digest, the thing him and Schneider were working on together, we find that it's publication of the Aquarian Church of Universal Service, P.O. Box 1116, McMinnville, Oregon. The Universal Church of Service has been a non-profit church since 1976 and currently seems to be based in Portland. It's listed Christian under the NTEE code, which stands for National Taxonomy of Exempt Entities, and was founded in 1980 by Paul Shockley, a very, very, very New Agey kind of guy for a New Agey kind of church. At the beginning of each issue of the digest, we find this excerpt. The Aquarian Church of Universal Service was founded and organized as a 501c3 nonprofit tax-exempt organization whose stated purpose is to serve a religious, research, philanthropic, Jesus, say the word philanthropic, an educational organization. Subscribers to the Cosmic Voyage need not be members. Members are encouraged to study all philosophies and important religious and secular teachings to draw from them the highest and best in search of higher truths and deeper understanding. L. Ron Hubbard! Subscribers and members need not agree, but our research of religious, scientific, philosophic, and metaphysics suggest a model of the universe as a living being, encompassing a hierarchy of vibrations and frequencies, which hold realms or multi-dimensions inhabited by various types of beings.
Oh, God.
Many. These realms are made from octaves or frequencies and may be many mansions in biblical terms. The biblical word, which means in the beginning with God as God, John 1 through 4, verses 1 through 4, Jesus. Sorry, I'm talking about that, John. Refers to universal vibrations or frequencies, the universal consciousness or divine mind. These higher frequencies are the life force and emanations of the divine mind of the Creator. FT is conceivable, and there's a lot of misspellings in this guy's pamphlet, by the way. I think he meant to say it is conceivable that physical matter is but the dream stuff of a divine mind. Even our dreams appear to be material and real while we are in a dream state. He said
Shit.
He typed area in the dream state. Life as we know it may well be a cosmic dream, and but thought forms living in the image of a divine mind. This philosophy explains mysteries of physics, of psychic, Jesus, and supernatural phenomenon. It reflects the microcosmic being as similar. I'm going to get a hemorrhage in my brain.
How every magazine started with this?
Every one of them. To a microcosmic being.
This is confusing.
I know, it's important. It's important you know that. It presumes we, as individual souls, are as cells in the body of God and reflect, like the DNA-coded cells in the human body as a whole, the image of God. Thus, the biblical statement that man was made in God's image refers to the reflected image of the universal consciousness of the macrocosm as it relates to the microcosm.
So essentially, they're subscribing to the how do I put this? What was that fucking something Jones? It was like it was that stupid amoeba that was living inside of a body. And
Osmosis Jones.
It's the Osmosis Jones theory that we're all just inside of the body of God and we're just a blood cell floating around.
Not really, but yes and no at the same time.
And that each universe is a blood cell or something.
Well,
that's essentially all it is.
Ridiculous.
But it's a little more psychic.
Our reality may be but a dream or image in the mind of the universal deity.
Okay, so now we're talking about H.P. Lovecraft shit.
Yeah, we are thus created in an image of God, with our frequencies reflected the patterns on universal frequencies. It's also very redundant, this entire thing.
Yeah,
God is universal consciousness, is a personal God. For what could be more personal than consciousness? Christianity's secret, esoteric, hidden inner teachings are embraced by the church and form a good God, a base for its deeper doctrines, interpretations, teachings, and embraced by science and religion, must eventually unite as they approach the absolute truth. We seek to speed the merging of the two. We believe that greater truths can only be discovered when we are free to question, doubt, and critically examine our own most cherished beliefs and to listen objectively to the beliefs of others. This way, we open ourselves to accelerated learning. We believe God will have it no other way. Our practice asks us to teach those who wish to know, he spelled heal with 2 A's, the sick, reduce the sorrow, suffering, and tragedy in the world, and to show by example the force which is creative love.
And if you understood that, you probably understood the
You belong in
Silmarillion.
that church.
You probably understood the
guy's crazy.
Silmarillion really well.
Yeah, that's called word vomit. So a lot of cults do this when they don't really know what they believe, but they want to sound super intelligent and get all of your money from you.
No, I understood everything he said. I'm just saying that he literally just pulled from.
I read it 4 times and I didn't understand it.
I didn't get that.
He literally pulled from the ideas of H.P. Lovecraft with Azathoth sleeping. I think it's Azathoth.
Okay,
it's the primary god who sleeps, and if he wakes up, everybody dies. And then he's pulling from like different things, saying like that essentially we're all linked psychically, and that the entire universe is living
we're all
inside
a
of the
part
body
of
God.
a greater body. Yeah. So basically, it's a pamphlet church. $10 would get you 1 issue, but a subscription of $27. Now that's where you get the good stuff. A whopping 6 issues a year. Sign me
God.
up. I
You
dug
gotta
as much.
subscribe to this.
Back to Rummel, man. I dug as much as I could into Rummel and came up with nothing substantial at all. No records of death, no evidence he ever existed. I looked up the park, the Macaulay Park, where he was found dead. If you're wondering where that is, it's in Portland. He was found on August 6th in 93. He was found in Macaulay. That whole set of paragraphs got me jumbled. In Macaulay Park, anyway, it's where the Piddock Mansion is, or the Witch's Castle. It's a very famous park in Portland. He was allegedly found there as a self-forever asleep, of course, from gunshot wound in '96. There's no record of anyone ever doing that in Macaulay Park that I could find, whatsoever. And I'm really starting to think this guy never existed at all.
Yeah, I agree.
But how does that happen? Because he's written this digest.
Somebody else could have written it under a different name.
4 to 6.
Under
Well,
this name?
he was using a pseudonym to begin with. This is supposed to be his real name when he was Air Force intelligence guy, allegedly.
I think he was. Okay, so I think he was a real person, but I think he was nuts. I think he was totally crazy. And I
Well,
don't
that
think-
church thing
He's
was
talking about Rummel, though.
I'm talking about Rummel, not the guy from the church. The church was
Oh.
different. That's who he went to get it published.
You got me confused.
So basically, he went through like a militia. The church thing sounds like someone that would publish militia banners, basically, pamphlets and weird New Age stuff. So you get a lot of pamphleteers going out, people that make these publications. I can't remember what the term is for that kind of press, but it's like, underground press or something like that, where it's people like the militia groups will have them. You'll get your pamphlets. The white supremacists have them. The Black Panthers had them. It's usually a publishing house that will just publish something from someone that agrees with anything they say and pays them enough to get their stuff published.
As long as you got the money, they'll publish it.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll publish it for you and distribute it, and they give you X amount of the money, and you take X amount of, they take X amount of money, you give X amount of the money back.
It's think of it like Amazon publishing.
It's just a publisher. It's a small publisher, basically. So that's what that church was. But this is the Rummel guy on his own. I don't think he was a real person.
I don't think he was real.
I think Phil Schneider made him up.
I think Phil Schneider was probably the one writing everything
I
as
think he was
Rummel.
maybe it was another personality. If it was
I think it might have been
Maybe he
Cynthia
had DID.
Dreyer.
It could be. It could have been. Yeah.
Maybe.
Dissociative identity disorder.
That's possible. Yeah, you're right. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Cynthia corroborates his existence.
I'd
That
say,
she knew him.
It's probably Cynthia then.
Maybe she's not real.
No, she's real. She's a real person. I heard her do an interview. That's it's Phil Schneider's ex-wife.
I don't know them.
Yeah. So here's my thought on it. Here's my breakdown of this entire guy with the Rummel guy, because he's impossible to find anything on. And I'm not the only person that's come across this. You can't find anything on him because he's not real. I think what happened is Schneider needed someone to write this with that wasn't his name, and he used Cynthia to help write it with him, and she went under Rummel to make it seem more real. Or that he made him up all together and he wrote all of it himself. Because this guy, there's no record of this guy being born, dying, having worked anywhere. No one else knew him. There's nobody that has anything recorded about this guy anywhere at all.
You'd been in the military records too, potentially.
Even if they tried to wipe that stuff.
There's no like pictures of him.
No, there's pictures. I think there's pictures of him, but I couldn't find any that were like obviously a real person.
The internet never forgets. So if there was something, there was something.
Yeah, but I didn't see anything that was him.
That's what I'm saying. So,
I saw a bunch of people that had the same name that were not him.
And nowadays it's like with AI, with the AI stuff, you don't even know if anything's real anymore.
Well, this was like a while ago.
Oh, yeah, even in the '90s though.
No, I'm saying like now
Yeah,
somebody
the
can
images
make an
and stuff.
AI image and say this is the guy.
Yeah,
It's
now
not
we
really-
literally will never know.
Yeah, now
We'll never
you'll
know
never have an idea.
because you can make an AI image that looks like it's straight out of the 90s or the 80s, you know,
And here's
or
a,
video or whatever.
I don't know if there's other UFO investigators that actually spoke to him or not. None of them that I could find actually met him or quote him or anything. They talk about what was in his pamphlet, and that's literally it. It's just stuff that you find in his pamphlet.
What makes you think that like Cynthia's lying about the UFO and stuff that was taken too? Like that she made that up?
Well, I mean, listen, dude, she knew a lawnmower man, bro.
Yeah, I mean I know some lawnmower men too.
She could be lying about how he was dead. He could have been shot to death. But the coroner's report said he was strangled, so I don't know.
This whole thing smells like bull. It smells like bull.
There's a chance she killed him, and you know,
Yeah, I mean she could have probably wrapped that catheter around her neck.
I mean, she was probably in Portland. I don't think
Is
she
she
did.
still alive?
I believe so.
I mean I doubt. I don't think she did.
No, I don't. I don't actually think that. I said it's a possibility. Everything's a possibility.
Everything's a possibility.
An alien could have crawled out and remembered that he shot him and didn't actually die.
Yeah, that alien
When you
was
shoot an
actually-
elephant in Africa or an alien underground, make sure it's dead, or it'll come back for you later. It's one Gary Larson
Wish we
joke.
could figure out like how to get a hold of her and interview her.
I could have looked it up, but I didn't want
That'd
to.
be cool.
I didn't want to. I listened to 2 or 3 of her interviews, and she is unhinged.
She's nuts.
She's 100% on board with the government's hiding aliens, and that Waco was to hide the aliens trafficking human flesh, and that the Oklahoma City bombing was to hide these freight cars of people being shoveled around to sell adrenochrome.
I'm
And
really confused. How
I have a
either of those
real
connect to
hard
anything.
time. I have a real hard time with anybody that says that, because I know what happened in Waco. It's well documented. The
Well,
ATF screwed up. They screwed the pooch hard. That's all there is to it.
No, they didn't screw the pooch.
They did exactly what they wanted to do. Let me put it that way. But on paper, they screwed the pooch.
The idiot that, actually, the idiot who pulled the trigger at Waco was at Ruby Ridge,
I know.
and I
No.
think he's still active.
He's retired now. He's well known.
He was
If
in a few
you
places pulling
if you
triggers.
do any study about
Wait,
this
so that
stuff,
was
he's pretty well known.
The cult thing.
Yeah, it was a branch
Yeah, I
Davidian.
watched the
Oh,
show, the Waco, Texas
It
show.
was
Yeah.
supposed
I watched
to-
like the first season and it was pretty good.
Were they doing something illegal? Probably. Were they doing something wrong? Questionable.
Here's the thing. It doesn't matter if someone's necessarily if they aren't opening fire on you, don't open fire on them.
Especially when you know there's women and children in there. This is the
What the
same
fuck
guy.
are you doing?
This is the same guy that had a sniper under him at freaking Ruby Ridge that executed a woman and a baby.
Yeah. No, I think one of them lived.
No,
I could have sworn one of them
the
lived.
wife and baby both died for
Lived
that one
though?
gunshot, and that sniper got celebrated for it.
Yeah, it's not shocking.
No.
They're fucking idiots.
That guy needs to go to prison for the rest of his life. He murdered a woman and an infant in their own home.
I mean,
That was all started over a dog.
I could theorize that he probably thought maybe she was a furry in a dog suit and he thought it was a dog, and so he pulled the
No,
trigger.
no, that's not the dog
Or
I'm
the
talking
baby
about.
had like little.
No,
furry-
the dog was down with the son and went after one
No,
of
I
the
know,
dogs.
I know exactly what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
I was just making a joke because the ATF loves to shoot dogs.
Anyway, I don't know. What do you guys think? I still don't think the guy exists.
It's
Yeah,
not real.
I don't think so.
He's fake, and I think the whole story is bull. I think honestly, I think he.
I think there's some truth scattered in there. I don't know. I don't buy the Dulce battle of underground aliens and
I
a bunch
think
of Green Berets getting killed. I don't buy
15
that.
minutes of fame lasts quite a while.
Yeah, it could have been just for money or attention or.
And that's probably why she's continuing the story. So
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Want your
Is
attention?
I think that she's continuing with it for, the limelight maybe. I shouldn't say that because I don't know her.
yeah,
but
I mean, yeah, we
she
don't know her,
she
so.
made her own choice to come out on interviews and of her own volition said these things and make these claims that she believes it. And that, like I said, the lawnmower man thing. As soon as she said that, I'm like, okay, this woman's crazy.
Yeah, no,
That's not a real thing.
that's nuts.
That's not a real thing.
It's,
Well, we could see what people think. Watch the video.
I mean,
Yeah, let us know in the comments what you guys think, your thoughts on this whole situation. And yeah,
man, that is nuts.
and if you need some high cost or high quality, low cost holy books, you know where to look. I don't suggest it. I do have the entirety of the Alien pamphlet thing that he published, all 4 publications of that, the Alien Digest.
There was only 4 of them.
There's alleged to be more that only a few people have, but widely distributed, there's only 4.
Huh?
It did get a pretty wide distribution at one point, so it went around the UFO communities,
Aliens. I mean,
and it goes into a lot of the same stuff that she believes. So
well, one of the biggest problems with like the alien theories is that there's I had a friend, or I worked with someone once, good guy, Native American, and he was talking about the story, like Native stories. He was telling me about like a general in our area, like Ulysses or somebody, would like, oh, he
Grant,
someone in our area was partaking in animals, and he was an animal. I don't know what the term is.
a
A
zoophile.
a zoophile, and he was talking about some of it. It's like, yes, and I'm like, he was talking about it, and he's like, yeah, our people have stories about it and stuff.
Well,
And
of
it's
course,
like,
your people have stories saying something negative about an invading force. You're not gonna be like, well, these guys are great.
Yeah.
These guys are taking our land
He's
and
fucking fantastic, bro.
pushing us around. They're awesome folks, man. I love what they're doing.
But-
I love what you've done with the place.
Here's the problem. is he was talking about it, and he said he was telling me about histories about stuff, and I stopped and I was like, where'd you hear about this? He's like, oh, it's stories passed down from generation to generation. And I stopped and asked him, I was like, did you guys ever write it down? And he goes, no. And I'm like, so
Don't do
most of
that.
it's bullshit. And he goes, he looks at me and goes, are you saying my people's history is bullshit? I'm like, yeah, quite a lot of it probably really is. And he goes, what? He's like, what the fuck? And he's like, why would you think that? I'm like, because if I tell you a story and you tell someone else a story, about 30% of that's going to change. I'm like, now trickle that shit down through history,
Telephone
hundreds of
games.
years trying to tell the story. And I'm like, what happens is everybody adds their bias, everybody adds their bent, and then the story changes.
And it changes to the common, what's going
And
on
it
in your
will
common time.
always
too.
happen. There is no such thing as
Motherfucker,
unwritten story that changes.
If you don't think that this is an accurate idea, just look at Japan. They originally thought the Earth was on a fucking catfish.
Well, turtle.
Turtle, whatever.
But
I thought it
here's
was
the
a
thing.
catfish.
It might be
Namizuya or whatever?
India might be turtle. Japan might be cabbage. But here's the thing: is when you look at aliens, the problem is that so many people are just picking up little details off of different people, and then they're taking it as fact. And that's what happens in the modern era with like information people get. They don't check their facts. They don't double check it. They don't check it against other sources. They just say, "I trust this source, and this source can never be wrong." And then, lo and behold, that source had a bent because that source will always have a bent, no matter
Well,
where
and
you're looking.
they're gonna
there
look
will
for
always be bullshit.
And they're going to look for confirmation bias anyway. But all right, guys, we'll do something a little more paranormal next week as we get closer to the spooky season. Yeah. Let us know what you think below in the comments again, and like, please, and share the video with people. It really helps. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. We're at 96 subscribers, trying to get a little more up there. Almost to a hundo. Yep. All right. Well, I'm Jay, and these are...
Still the sword jack.
And Katie Cat.
All right, guys. Till next time, good night, and good nightmares.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.